Well, hello everyone. My name's Denise Young. I'm calling from, or I guess leading this webinar from UNC Chapel Hill at Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center. Our science festival is the North Carolina Science Festival. We've got two other presenters today, my partners in EvalFest Crime, Karen Peterman and Catherine Nielsen. They'll introduce themselves in just a moment, but I do want to just tell you how excited we are to have this day finally here. We've sort of seen November 10th as the official kickoff to EvalFest, and it's been a long time coming. We're so glad you're here with us, and we look forward to today's orientation session. And today we do want to introduce everyone to EvalFest, including who is involved in EvalFest, what we hope to accomplish, how you and your festival team fit in, and what some of the things are that we might do together. We'll finish this webinar today with a few details about our first annual meeting, which will be held here in Chapel Hill on January 14th and 15th. We're going to be sharing a lot of information with you today, but we're also going to ask for your participation throughout the webinar with both questions that we pose and through questions and thoughts that you might interject through the webinar. We are watching now to see if you are raising your hand or posting a question in the chat area. We really encourage you to do that. Don't be bashful at all. We've got 5 years together, and we want everyone from the very, very start to feel comfortable participating and making sure you understand what we're up to and what we hope to accomplish together. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Again, Karen and Catherine are going to introduce themselves in just a few moments, but I also wanted to let you know that here in my office today is Emma Horozovsky. She is our EvalFest project coordinator. She just started last week. She's going to be working out of this office and facilitating communication and data collection and all kinds of other things over the course of the next 5 years. We feel really fortunate to have her, and she's watching for questions and raised hands today during the webinar. Will let us know as quickly as possible if you've got something you'd like to say. Also want to take an opportunity for just a moment to again thank Ben Weehee and Julie Fouché of the Science Festival Alliance for their support throughout the work just to get us to the point here today. They're also allowing us to use Science Festival Alliance GoToWebinar technology through the Science Festival Alliance, and we're really grateful for that. And of course, I also want to thank the National Science Foundation, who is supporting this EvalFest project. So, okay. Whoops, there we go. Thank you. So what is EvalFest? EvalFest is evaluation use, value, and learning through festivals of science and technology. Again, this is a 5-year project funded by the National Science Foundation. It's in the Education and Human Resources Directorate through the AZLE program, Advancing Informal Science Learning. We are seeking to answer several research questions related to science festival evaluation, including how to build capacity within the festival community for evaluating and reporting the work that we're doing. We're going to share more about that research in a moment, but again, just some additional details about the project. We officially started, in terms of NSF on the books, started September 1st of this year. We have a total of 26 science festivals that are part of EvalFest from the very beginning. You can see the cities here where each of those festivals is based. It's a great representation from across the country. One question that we've already been asked is there an opportunity for additional festivals to join EvalFest? I thought I would address that right up front. We do expect within the 3rd or 4th year of the project to be able to bring other science festivals on board with EvalFest. But for right now, the 26 festivals that we have for the first couple of years are going to be the festivals that we can go with. That's a funding decision, but also just an internal capacity decision on our part that we feel like this group is the right group to get the project going. And again, later on in EvalFest, we'll be able to add more festivals to the mix. Okay, here's a, oops, great. Here's a different look at who's involved festival-wise with EvalFest. You can see through reading the names of some of the festivals that some are statewide, some are citywide, some are regional, some are based at universities, and that there are all kinds of science festivals involved in EvalFest, which is really exciting to us. Some of the festivals involved have very large budgets. I believe there's a festival involved that has a budget, nearing multiple millions of dollars, and others have budgets that range, are in the hundreds of dollars. The exciting thing about this project is that regardless of the size or scope of the science festivals involved, all 26 have agreed to start using common instruments as part of their festival evaluations. We're going to be using methods that have been developed by the Science Festival Alliance as the starting point for the common data collection. And then the idea is to build beyond that as quickly as we can to start using evaluation and research methods that start to measure impact in different ways. All right. Thought it'd be worthwhile to take a few moments to discuss, in addition to the festivals, who else is involved in EvalFest. We've got a really wonderful group of advisors and consultants for this project, and you'll have access to them in different ways throughout the 5 years. This group is experienced in many different realms, including with science festivals, measuring learning impacts, creating new measures, including those that we'll explore as a group and decide if we think they might be worthwhile to use in the context of science festivals, and in many other arenas. We'll hear a little more about some of their expertise today, and we'll be integrating their expertise again into future webinars and meetings that we'll have through the project. I believe we've got several advisors on the call today, as well as several of our consultants. So Stacy Toll, I believe, is with us today, and Tina Phillips. Amy Grack Nelson, who is a psychometrician, she'll be helping us validate instruments that we co-develop or use as part of EvalFest. Our own evaluator for this project, Pat Jessup, is with us today. She'll be looking at our work over the next several years and documenting that and helping us see how this community of practice comes together. We also have some folks on the line from NBT Solutions. They're going to be spearheading the development of our website and our database, where the festival data we collect will be stored and made available to other festivals. And there are probably others on the line as well from the advisors and consultants group. And again, we're really grateful to have this group together and joining us for the next several years. I think at this point I'm going to hand things over to Karen Peterman. And Karen, if you would just start by introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi everybody, I'm Karen Peterman. I'm thrilled that so many people have called in today. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and to get some of this preliminary orientation stuff out of the way. I have a small evaluation and research firm based in Durham, North Carolina. I specialize in STEM programs, and since 2009 have been lucky enough to have science festivals as part of my portfolio. I started evaluating the San Diego Science Festival in 2009 and was able to be involved in some of the evaluation work that the SFA was doing as well. That was through Goodman Research Group. And then starting in 2012, began evaluating the North Carolina Science Festival, and I'm a co-PI on the EvalFest project. If you guys want to go to the next slide. So Denise has just sort of walked us through who EvalFest is. Now I want to shift gears a bit and talk a little bit about what EvalFest is. And Denise already mentioned this a little bit. EvalFest is actually funded as a research project. And so even though we think it will feel like a program and maybe even like an intervention, we did want to mention up front that there is a research study going on around this work that we're all about to embark on together. The 3 research questions for the project are listed here. The first of these focuses on evaluation use, and that's something that we're going to spend more time learning about when we meet in January. The second focuses on the strategies that we come to realize are the most important for building evaluation capacities within the festival community. And value in that case is really an open book. It could be anything that we do together over the next 5 years. So it could be meeting on a regular basis, any of the instruments that we create, professional development that we provide through the project, focusing on data visualization, or something that isn't even on the radar at this point. So this one is a really open and I think exciting question for us to explore as we work together over the next several years. And then the third question focuses on the data that we all plan to collect at our festivals and combine into a massive database. And the question here is really whether that information can generalize to yield additional learning about either other public science events or even the larger world of informal learning overall. So we're going to be asking you some questions related to each of these topics from time to time throughout the project. Some of the activities that we do together in January are going to serve as some of our baseline research data for the study. As Denise mentioned, EvalFest also has an evaluation component, and that is being directed by Pat Jessup, who's on the call today. We expect that you'll get to meet Pat hopefully in January. The evaluation itself is formative in the first year, and so Pat will not be contacting you prior to January to begin collecting data, but she's likely to start gathering feedback from you soon after. If you're thinking about sort of scheduling and the time commitment for all of this, we anticipate that the research and evaluation data collection components will take less than 3 hours of your time each year of the project, and so we hope that you will be willing and interested in participating in those components with us. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we talked a little bit about who and we talked a little bit about what, and now I want to talk about how. If you were part of the October webinar, you'll probably recognize this slide and some of the information that I'm about to share. The primary strategy that we plan to use for this project is a community-created multi-site evaluation. Multi-site evaluations involve multiple program sites that participate in cross-site evaluation activities. And if any of you have ever been part of one of these in the past, you'll know that they're usually imposed on us by a funder or some other governing body instead of being built from the ground up. One of the unique aspects of EvalFest is that we plan to build our own multi-site evaluation. And that means that those of us that are on this webinar today are going to work together to design our own instruments and to implement those in ways that we think make sense for us as individual festivals, but also for the community. Several years ago, the National Science Foundation funded a research study called Beyond Evaluation Use to document the impact of several of the multi-site evaluations they were implementing. And we plan to use the best practices from that study to guide the work that we do as we try to lead this community. Stacy Toll is on the line today, as Denise mentioned, and she was one of the researchers that was part of the Beyond Evaluation Use team. And so Stacy is going to play a large role, we think, in these early years of the project in particular as we get the multi-site evaluation up off the ground and sort of helping us make sure that we are taking advantage of everything that they learned through that study and implementing those best practices as we try to lead the group. More recently, I learned about a project called the Denver Evaluation Network. They've done something similar to EvalFest. They united a number of informal institutions in the Denver area. And those folks had little or no experience with evaluation whatsoever, but they came together under the leadership of one evaluator and really began to work together to build capacity in areas that they found most interesting. And so I think they're actually going to serve for a great model for us as well as we begin to move forward. All right, next slide. So contrary to the image that we just saw, we know that no two festivals are alike. And so this sort of variation on a color scheme is really maybe a better way to think about our festival community than two identical institutions that are being viewed through a slightly different lens. We know that no two festivals are alike. And so the first job when we meet in January is going to be to identify the common threads that we do share, and then a core set of attendee and event host and exhibitor survey items that we think we can use to measure those commonalities. Those are going to be the basis for the multi-site evaluation for the first couple of years. We really want to focus on that, iron out the kinks, make sure that everybody's happy with both the core set of questions that we use as well as the flexibility around that core set of questions before we move on to other methods. Our goal is to have instruments that can create common information on a subset of questions, but then allow the evaluation to flex around the variability that is part of our community. The grant included the purchase of 60 iPad minis that will be programmed with the surveys that we plan to use and then loaned out probably about 10 or 15 at a time to festivals throughout the year, and you'll be able to use those to collect your data. The great thing for us about the tablets and the programs that we plan to load onto those is that festivals can opt out of individual questions that are not part of the core set that we agree to use in January. And so the data collection across the country will be both common and festival specific at the same time. And we're really excited to see how that works and what the challenges associated with that might be. All right, next slide. Okay, EvalFest is also going to provide the opportunity for lots of reflection and lots of time spent working together through monthly webinars. And as I mentioned earlier, there's this group called the Denver Evaluation Network, and I had the chance to see them present at the American Evaluation Association this year. And one of the strategies that worked particularly well for them was to have folks participate in working groups that were made up of a subset of their entire community. You probably already know that we have divided up our list of 26 festivals into 3 different groups, and we did that sort of randomly and assigned a third of the group to each of the 3 PIs so that everybody would know who their point of contact was. But part of what I learned at AEA is making me wonder and making us wonder if maybe an affinity group model would be a better way to go about this. So instead of sort of randomly carving up the group, it might be good to have affinity groups that are based on something like size or region or location or model. We would still plan to meet in some of the webinars as an entire community, but we might devote other webinars to these affinity groups so that we had the chance to communicate with other festivals that were most related to our own. But we're not really sure if that's the right strategy to use or not. And so we wanted to provide you guys with a chance to weigh in. And so this is where we'd like to ask our first poll question. And it really has to do with whether we should use this affinity group model. So if you think yes, then you would have the opportunity to select to be part of a smaller group based on one of the overall topics presented on that previous slide. If you choose no, then you're saying that your preference and the way you think you would benefit from EvalFest the most is to interact with the entire community on a regular basis through the monthly webinars. So if you could take a couple of minutes and log in your preference there, should we use the affinity group model to work together in the next year? And then Emma, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see the votes as they come in, so if you could maybe give an update if the results don't automatically post to the whole group, that would be great.
Okay, we've had about 75% of our attendees voting, with 76% saying yes, so I think that's pretty overwhelmingly for the affinity model.
Fantastic.
I'm going to close that poll.
I'm excited about that possibility as well. In case the yes votes did win, we have a second question that we wanted to ask. which is sort of a follow-up. So if you look at the different options, oops, can you go back for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the different options on this next slide, you've got size, location, region, and model. Size is the size of your festival. Actually, Emma, maybe we don't need to go back. We can stay here.
Yeah.
Location is really more, maybe it should read urbanicity instead. So is your festival urban, rural, or suburban? Region is based on region of the country, which would probably end up being East Coast, West Coast, and in the middle. And then model was, what was it? Statewide, city, or regional. So if you want to take a look at those, pick the one that you think would be the most meaningful for your particular festival. And we'll see if we have an option that rises to the top if we vote in this way as well. While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and say that we plan to use all of the different poll results from this particular webinar to really guide the decisions we make for structuring the meeting and formatting the meeting in January, and then for thinking about how to organize the webinars throughout the rest of this first year as well. We take the community created aspect of EvalFest very seriously, and so want to make sure that we provide options as often as we can and then respond to those as quickly as we can to make sure that this feels like a community created project instead of being one in sort of name or concept alone. Emma, how are we doing?
All right, we've had about 3/4 of our participants voting, and right now it looks like 2/3 are voting for the model. Then the next about 20% vote for size, 9% for location, and 6% for region. Okay.
And certainly those groups are not mutually exclusive, so we can probably think a little bit about how to divide up into groups for that, and hopefully we'll have some good answers for you when we meet in January. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Denise, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the particular methods that we plan to explore in the years to come.
Great. Okay, thank you. So a key focus of EvalFest is the use of evaluation methods that push beyond the traditional survey methods that most of us are currently using or planning to use. We think that science festivals, by their very nature, are non-traditional kinds of events, and that non-traditional methods may be the best way of evaluating the effect of our work among the people and for the people that we serve. One of the reasons we think that the National Science Foundation was interested in EvalFest and allowed us some flexibility in terms of what methods we would use is the fact that over the past several years, the National Science Foundation and other organizations like the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation have invested heavily in projects that are specifically designed to develop instruments for informal learning contexts. And so we have included several of the key players from several of those efforts on our advisory board. Robert Tye from UVA, Rena Dorff from the Science Learning Activation Lab, and Tina Phillips from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology are just a few examples there. Amy Grack-Nelson, our psychometrician for this project, will build on these existing efforts by working with us to look at those informal learning instruments and measure and evaluation tools and help us refine those and validate them within the context of science festivals. So those are a few of the non-traditional things we may look at, but there are others as well, and there are a few ideas that we included in our proposal and some that have come up since the time we submitted the proposal, and we think there will be, as this project gets going, many more ideas that we could look at together as a community. Some of the ideas that we included in our proposal were the idea of using public polling as a way to assess festivals and the effect of festivals. Karen and I have been working on mystery shopping within the context of science festivals to study interactions between scientists and the public, which we know that interaction between scientists and the public is kind of a key, almost a best practice within festivals. Economic impact data is something that several of us have expressed interest in. There are other studies such as the Falk and Needham study looking at community growth or community learning that we might replicate through EvalFest. And then some sort of embedded assessment, perhaps having a booth at an expo that we've carefully designed and can use to assess the festivals as well. So those are some of the methods that we included in the proposal and thought about. Other ideas that have come up since, or new methods, bean polls, social network analysis, which is something that we're looking at in North Carolina, and I'll be happy to share more about that when we get together in January. And then mapping, using some sort of visualization to look at venues and attendees, who's attending a festival and who's not. And what that might tell us about festivals. And then, of course, there are great people involved in this project. We think we'll come up with even more ideas and innovative methods as we go along over the next several years. One thing I do want to say, though, is that this is a lot to take in, particularly if you're a relatively new festival or maybe have not had an opportunity to do a lot of evaluation. We're throwing all these things out here today, public polling and economic impact data and social network analysis, and that could sound a little overwhelming. So I do want to remind us that this is a 5-year project. We're going to pace ourselves. Of course, we want to get to the point where we're moving past surveys as quickly as we can, but we're going to build capacity together over time. So we're not going to, out of the starting gate, try to do all of this all at the same time. I just want to kind of keep the reality check here for a moment that we're not going to be pushing forward so quickly that that we're not overwhelmed with the idea of what we can do together. The last 3 years of the project, we've actually set aside funds in our budget for what at the moment we're calling mini grants. There will be opportunities if there is a method that you're really interested in trying out at your festival. You'll have an opportunity in years 3, 4, and 5 to apply for funds to try that idea out, that evaluation idea out with your festival, and then you'll have some technical assistance from this team here, as long as you're willing to report out what happens once you try that method out. So know that that is something that is coming again later on in the project.
Okay. So one of the things that we do want to start doing in North Carolina and in the Bay Area this first year is laying the groundwork for some of that validation work and some of the construct work that Denise mentioned, having the opportunity for the larger community to tackle in later years of the grant. And we wanted to do a quick vote on this as well. So you should have gotten an email from me earlier today that included each of the 3 instruments that you see listed on this slide. If you haven't looked at them yet and have a chance to pull them up now, that would probably be handy. If you have seen the survey from the Science Festival Alliance, you'll know that the outcomes measures on that survey are fairly shallow. We have been asking about how effective festival events were at helping somebody have fun or learn something new, or or feel inspired about continuing to engage in STEM. And those are sort of a shallow measure because it's really, one item and one self-rated item at that for each of those different ideas. As part of EvalFest, we want to start measuring constructs. by using scales that include a variety of questions that all ask about nuanced topics related to one big idea. And you can see 3 of those options on this slide. So we've got the opportunity already to look at engagement, to look at self-efficacy or motivation. These build off the work of our EvalFest advisors. And so, as Denise mentioned earlier, Rena Dorff is from the Science Learning Activation Lab. They're doing a tremendous amount of work in this area right now. The same is true for the Devise project based out of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Their work is done within the context of citizen science projects, but a lot of their scales have broad applicability, and these are 2 of that bundle that are already publicly available. What we want to do in year 1 and year 2 of the project is go ahead and start validating these different constructs if we're interested in measuring them as a community within the context of science festivals. And that's part of the job that Amy is going to do with us. And so what we wanted to do is get an idea of where we should start with this work. First of all, get an idea of whether we're interested in these 3 constructs. And if we are, then figure out what order we want to start chipping away at this stuff. So in case you have not received the email from me, or in case you just haven't had a chance to look at it yet, I wanted to do a quick review of what each of these instruments are, and then we're going to do another vote or 2. So the first one is the engagement survey. This one is 22 items long, and it focuses on an activity and how engaged a participant was in that activity. The first set of questions on the scale looks at how the participant felt while they were doing the activity. So it asks questions like, were they bored? Did they feel happy? Did they work hard? Did they do more than was required of them? And then there's a second set of questions that focuses on the information included in the activity. So how much of that information was new? Was the content too easy, too difficult, or just right? And then whether they learned anything. So that's sort of a quick summary of the engagement survey. Then we've got the self-efficacy for learning and doing science scale. This one has 8 items. 4 ask participants to rate how good they are at understanding or explaining science, and 4 focus on doing science activities and how good they are at doing science activities. Ratings across all of the items are combined into an overall score of self-efficacy, but then you can also create a score that looks at either learning alone or doing alone. Participants who have an average score below 3 are those who have low self-efficacy or low confidence about their ability to learn and do science. So that's our second option. And then the third one is motivation for learning and doing science. This one is 16 items, and it's set up similarly to the self-efficacy scale. So the first 8 items focus on motivation and learning, for learning and understanding science concepts, and the second 8 focus on motivation for doing science activities. These can be administered all as one, or you can administer them as 2 separate scales, a learning scale and a doing scale. Each one yields an internal motivation score and an external motivation score. Internal motivations are those that are sort of that come from within the person based on their own interests or passions or feelings. The external motivations come from outside the person, so pressure from school or society or some other reason to take part in science. So those are the 3 options. And what we wanted to do to start was go to another poll and just find out which of these topics are a good fit for outcomes that you're trying to achieve for your festival. So this next polling item is going to be a select all that apply. So you can choose, none, one, or all, whatever makes the most sense for you. But if you think about the goals of your festival and what you're trying to impact, please use that as a guide for choosing which of these is going to be a good fit. So this isn't what might be interesting, it's what's a good and direct fit for the outcomes you're trying to achieve through your festival. And Emma, if you want to give a quick report out once we get up to, it seems like that 75% mark. has worked for us earlier.
All right. So
Oh.
There we go. I figured out how to share it so everyone could see. So as you can see, people are most interested in engagement, then motivation, and then self-efficacy.
Yeah. And I think that's how I don't get to rate things since I'm a presenter, but I think that's probably how I would rate things for our festival here in North Carolina as well. So that's great. The next poll question is sort of the pecking order for these. So, I mean, maybe we already have it from the votes we just received, but if you had to pick only one of these topics as our starting point for validating scales within the next year so that we could make them available to you maybe in year 2, maybe in year 3, which is the one topic you'd like to see us tackle first? Would it be engagement, self-efficacy, or motivation?
All right. So as you can see, engagement is one of our major ones with 71%, and then self-efficacy only has 3%, and motivation has 26%. So pretty much what we saw in the last slide.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you guys for doing that. So what we will plan to do probably in January is talk a little bit more about the engagement scale. It's our hope that Amy's going to be able to attend the January meeting as well, and so we'll have a chance to sit down with her and learn more about validation and why it's important, and then think about all of those topics in relation to this engagement survey and how it makes sense to try to implement it within the context of festivals. During the spring festival season and maybe even into the summer festival season, we'll be working to try to validate a version of the engagement survey within the context of festivals. And then, as I said earlier, the goal is to have an engagement measure that we feel good about, that's been validated within our own context, that we can make available to the larger community, maybe as early as year 2 in the project. All right, now I think, can we go to the next slide? Catherine, are we able to hear you?
Unfortunately, I think Catherine's voice cannot be heard today.
Okay.
Shame, due to our software malfunctioning a little bit.
Denise, you want me to just keep going?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Catherine. We'll figure it out next time.
Yeah, so apologies to Catherine especially for the technical difficulty. She doesn't get to present with us today, which is too bad. The final research question for the project focuses on whether and how results from EvalFest contribute to what we know about other kinds of public science events and even the larger world of informal science learning. And one of the key ways that we think we can accomplish that is through a website that provides a real-time look at EvalFest data through a number of different data visualization features. As Denise mentioned earlier, we're partnering with NBT Solutions for this piece. And so Will Mitchell and Sean Myers are going to be helping us develop the website and then integrate all of the data into that. On the short-term and practical side, we hope that the website is going to be able to do a lot of basic reporting for each individual festival, so that festival teams or other stakeholders like your advisory boards can visit the site and review results from their own festival using sort of a data dashboard format. From the broader perspective, the site is going to combine data across all of our festivals and then code that data in relation to key program features. So that might be, the size of a festival, whether it was urban or rural, whether the activity being rated was hands-on or not, attendee demographic variables. And the idea there is that if somebody had a specific question like, do hands-on events have more impact on participants in urban versus rural locations, They could visit the site, turn on and off the different data layers for those key variables, and see the results. We also expect that we'll be able to download data directly from the website so that people can do their own analysis with EvalFest data. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Data visualization is sort of a fun and hot topic in evaluation right now. Yes, evaluators have fun and hot topics. And one of the things that's been really fun about the last few American Evaluation Association meetings is to see all of the different and creative ways that people have started to present data and focus on reporting, and we're hoping to share some of those with you as part of this project as well. And so what we wanted to get a sense of is what you're already doing when it comes to data and visualizing data. And so we want to do a couple of final poll questions just to get a sense of which of these data visualizations have you used in the past to effectively share evaluation results. So if you did it and it sort of flapped, please don't check the box. We are limited in this particular web hosting platform to 5 survey options per survey, so we've taken this list and sort of carved it into 2. And what we'd like to know is which of these you've used in the past effectively to share evaluation data. It could be for your festival or it could be for other projects that you have evaluated. So if you think these have been effective for you, please check the boxes. And as I said, we're going to split this list in half. So we're going to look at charts, graphs, word clouds, and infographics to start. Word clouds, in case you're not familiar with them, are sort of the graphical display that we looked at earlier when Denise showed all of the different names for the different science festivals in that colorful format. Infographics are, they sort of look like a poster with lots of big numbers and data presentations all loaded on one page so that you get a quick snapshot of all of the results in sort of a poster format. How are we doing, Emma?
All right, so I'm going to close this poll because we've had about 75% exactly, 80. I'm going to share those results. So 71% charts, 86% of people have used graphs effectively, 20% word clouds, and 29% infographics.
All right, so let's look at the second half of the list. We've got a couple of mapping options here. So one is just geographic maps. If you've used heat maps, if you've ever done anything with GIS, geographical information systems, to look at different layers of data on a map, then that's the first option. Data dashboards are electronic. It's sort of like an electronic infographic. And so in the simplest form, a data dashboard might just be a ticker that tells you how much money has been collected for a fundraising goal or how many people have done something in particular. The more elaborate data dashboards will update minute to minute or second to second as information comes in and actually do some analysis and present the analysis in sort of a graphical form for you. And then network maps are being used more and more these days as well as social network analysis becomes more prevalent as an evaluation tool. And so network maps show how connected people are to one another and how strong those connections might be. You can color code for lots of different variability there as well.
All right, so most of you have used geographic maps, 77%, 19 have used data dashboards, I know we used them at the Moorhead, and 13 have used network maps.
Nice. Okay, so that gives us a good idea of where we're comfortable, where we're already working, and areas where we might stretch and grow a little bit as we begin to move forward. Denise, do you want me to turn it back over to you for expectations?
Yeah, that's fine. And I also wanted to just take a moment to say that Emma and I have been going through the questions as they've been coming up. And if we're not responding to your question today or right now, please know that we've got them and we will at the right time respond to them. There have been questions about validation, about whether the topics relating to engagement, self-efficacy, and motivation, whether there can be more discussion around those to make sure everyone really understands what they are before we would make a decision moving forward. Of course, yes, we'll spend some time in our annual meeting in January discussing those topics and others. Someone expressed an interest in the idea of collaboration as something that we might be interested in measuring as much as or more than attendee or audience data as a focal point. We've got that, and then more information about festival structures and how that might play into affinity groups. So we'll certainly circle back to those questions and thoughts and comments, and thank you for submitting them. Someone also asked about the PIN number for the telephone, and you have to actually call in to the number to get the PIN. So we don't, that's not something we have right here. You have to call in and it will give you the PIN number.
Or it will give you an individualized PIN number, so unfortunately that's not something we can give you here. If you're having any trouble with your audio settings, and I know this is very late in the game, but check on your audio and it may be able to help you out in that way, because this is going to be software we're going to be using, and sorry about the kind of fits and starts at first. We are going to get much better at this as we move along in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll at this point move on with the webinar. Just to get a little more specific about what the benefits are of participating in EvalFest, we did send a document to you late last week that spells some of this information out. Some of you requested this because you may have to take the concept of your festival participating in EvalFest to a board or to a director to get direct approval to participate. So we thought we would lay that information out for you in a document, but also just go through it today. Of course, first of all, we're going to create an active community of 26 festivals to start that is interested in and supportive of festival evaluation and of working together, and that I believe will be the greatest aspect of this project, and what we're very excited about, not kind of all being in a vacuum doing this work, but working together. Also, we will, with your input, develop and validate evaluation tools for your festival. Again, starting with those more traditional measures, but moving into some additional measures as well. And we'll provide technology to support data collection at your festival. Karen mentioned the iPad minis that we'll have available, so we'll to you, and apps as well. So we'll be able to hopefully make it easier for you to collect data at your festival. And we'll have some technical assistance and training to go along with that. We'll be able to help you conduct a basic analysis of your festival data and reporting of that. And then we will also reimburse your travel expenses for the annual meetings in 2015 and 2016. We will have an annual meeting for all 5 years of the project. The first 2 years will be in person, face-to-face. We think that's really important as we're starting to build this community. So there are funds in the grant to support 2 people from your festival, a festival coordinator and a person who's serving as your festival evaluator to attend those face-to-face meetings in the first couple of years. All right, and then what will your festival coordinator and evaluator do as part of EvalFest? And these are our expectations of each festival, and that is to attend and participate actively in those annual meetings. There'll be up to 2 days per year. Again, January 14th and 15th of 2015 will be our first one. We will ask you to participate actively in what we think will be monthly webinars and up to 18 hours per year. When we all get together and decide our agenda and kind of how we want to lay out our work and what we're interested in, we may move away from a monthly format for some other better arrangement. But as of right now, our thinking is that we'll get together monthly via webinar. We would also ask that you collect data during your festival with the EvalFest instruments that we decide on and develop together. We'll ask that you provide feedback about the instruments, analysis, and reporting tools, again, that we'll be developing together as a group. That feedback is instrumental in making those tools better for the entire festival community. And then we would also ask, as Karen mentioned earlier, that you participate in our research and evaluation efforts. All right, and then we thought you might have a few questions about the annual meeting that's coming up in just a couple of months. We first want to acknowledge that traveling and taking 2 days out of your schedule, maybe a little longer because of the travel time, is a big commitment, and it's something that we want to acknowledge as a big commitment, and that we really appreciate on the front end that that you are willing to do that. We think that, again, getting together face-to-face, meeting each other, getting to know each other is really kind of a foundational part of EvalFest and to our future success. So again, thank you for agreeing to come. In the next day or so, you're going to get a memo with much more detailed information about our first annual meeting. The meeting will be held here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We've already ordered fantastic travel weather for everyone across the entire country during those dates. So we'll be meeting on Wednesday and Thursday. We're asking that we get started on Wednesday the 14th at 10 a.m. We're hoping that that will allow those of you who want to take a very early morning flight to be able to do that and still get here on the 14th. Or if you're a West Coaster, that you're not getting up at the crack of dawn to get started here on East Coast time. And expect that on the 14th we're going to work all the way through dinner. So it's going to be a full day starting at 10 a.m. and going through dinner time. The next day on the 15th, we're going to pick up at 9 a.m. and work until 3 p.m. We're going to end at 3 in the hopes that those of you who would like to get to the airport to pick up a flight that leaves at 5 p.m. or later will be able to do so, but still fully participate in the entire meeting. So we will end at 3 o'clock on that second day. If you are wanting to make your travel arrangements or book a flight, anytime after 5 p.m. on Thursday will allow you to participate in the full meeting and still get to the airport in plenty of time to catch a 5 p.m. or later flight. Again, we're putting all of this information in a memo, and we'll send it to you in the next day. We are going to provide each individual in attendance, and again, that's 2 people from each festival, a festival coordinator and an evaluator, a stipend to cover your travel expenses. We'll issue those stipends after the meeting, and there'll be a little bit of paperwork that you'll have to do, of course, to get that stipend, and we'll send information about all of that in that same memo. Some of you are asking what we're going to do at that meeting. First, of course, there's the community building, getting to know who our colleagues are that we'll be working with over the next 5 years. A lot of us have a head start in that because we've been part of the Science Festival Alliance, or you've got a Sloan grant and you've got a pod you've been working at, but we want to build this community around evaluation, so that will be an important aspect of what we do. How are we going to do that? We're going to dig into our first evaluation methods and come to consensus about what we want to evaluate and what methods we want to use. Started that discussion a little bit today. We're going to learn about tools that we'll be using for data collection, such as iPads and software. We're going to provide some feedback to NBT Solutions about our website and databases and data capture tools. We're going to determine an agenda for our future webinars and other methods that we'd like to investigate for future use in festival evaluation. You know, someone just mentioned that they're interested in measuring or evaluating collaboration. That might be something, if there are other people interested in that, that will build some conversation and resources and tools around going forward. So we've got a lot to accomplish and a lot to pack into 2 days, and we think it will be a busy time and also an exciting time as this project gets underway. And at this point, I think we will stop talking and answer some questions. So if you've got a question related to anything you've heard today, or anything that maybe has been a burning question, if you've had a chance to talk with us since we got notification about the grant, please let us know. You can raise your hand, you can chat a question. Okay, someone's asking about what if we haven't found an evaluator by the annual meeting? We would love for you to have had, if you have not found an evaluator in the near future, we want to talk with you about that. We really do want you to have a thought partner coming into the annual meeting in January, so we want to try to help you identify who that person might be. In a conversation we had, or I guess last month, about identifying an evaluator, we said an evaluator for your festival does not have to be an external person who you are paying to conduct an evaluation. It could be someone from your festival steering committee or advisory board, or in your organization, who has an interest in helping you improve your festival. Does not have to be someone that's got a lot of prior experience with evaluation, but someone who can really serve as a thought partner for you for this project and as you're implementing evaluation at your site. We will talk with you. We've got your name here, and we'll get in touch with you if you're really struggling to find that individual. And certainly feel free to reach out to Catherine or Karen or myself if you fall into that category. Okay, Karen, we've got a lot of questions here.
Yay.
How soon after the January meeting will the questions for the surveys be available?
Yeah, I can tackle that one. I have at least 2 festivals that I know about that need to begin using the survey in early February. And so I think we have 2 that need to sort of hit the ground running, and maybe more, around February 7th. And so the plan for those festivals is to work with us as best we can to get things loaded into the system and programmed for them prior to the January meeting. We'll probably use those as the specific test cases for looking at questions, playing with the iPad minis, playing with the different survey programs, so that we can do a quick tweak after the January meeting to make sure that the core questions are included and that they've still got the individualized questions embedded as well that they want to use, and the plan is to get them out as early as early February.
Great, thank you.
If anybody needs them faster than that, we'll certainly try. But we would definitely need to meet prior to January for that to happen, so send me an email if you fall into that camp, and we'll get a meeting on the books for early December and make sure that we've got our ducks in a row as best we can, so that we can get the iPads to you immediately after the January meeting.
Great. Okay. Yes, if you did not get an email with the evaluation approaches in it, we will resend that to you. In fact, we'll just attach that to the email with the memo about travel planning and such that you'll get in the next day or so. Somebody made a suggestion that perhaps we could organize affinity groups around festival goals, because that might help us determine evaluation tools that fit based on what the goals of our festival are. That's a really interesting idea and certainly something we should discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Making suggestions on evaluators. Yes, we'll talk with you offline if you're having difficulty identifying an evaluator. Karen, can you speak to the extent to which instruments can be customized for individual festivals?
Sure. So the idea with the attendee survey and the event host and exhibitor surveys that we're trying to launch this year is that there will be a core set of questions that everybody agrees to use. For all of the other items, those are sort of opt-in, opt-out. And so what we are going to try to do before the January meeting is have people submit items that they would like the community to talk about that are not currently included in the Science Festival Alliance attendee survey. That SFA attendee survey is what most of us are using around the country, and so it's going to be our springboard for conversation. But we know that there are questions out there that are really good and interesting that aren't currently on that form. So we'll be working with Emma to gather those questions from you, and then any of those can go on to the survey. If you have something that it just so happens that you care about a lot, that nobody else is that interested in, we should be able to program those for you as well. And they would probably be on some of the final pages of the survey. And so we intend to be as sort of flexible and tailored as possible, and we think that the technologies we've selected will allow us to do that. So if you have particular concerns, definitely email them to me so that I can think about them starting now. And part of what we'll do in January is go through and have everybody identify the questions they want and the questions they don't, so that we can get programming as soon as that meeting is over and have things live and ready to go when we need them.
Great, thanks. Someone was asking about the mini grants and when we can start that process. We've got that slated for years 3 through 5, with the idea that the first couple of years would be spent working on some common tools or instruments that we would all want to work on together, and then we might in year 3 start exploring other opportunities. That's also up for negotiation. So probably won't do any mini grant work in year 1, but we might consider it in year 2 if we could get if it works out for the community to start in year 2. Use of the iPads, will they only be used in expos for data collection? I think because we have so many different, Karen, you can certainly chime in here, but my take is since we've got 26 festivals that are all, that festivals look completely different from one another, one of the things that we've noticed that is common to the festivals is that each tends to have something like an expo. In fact, an expo may be the centerpiece of some of the festivals that are involved in EvalFest, and so initially that's where we want to start with data collection and the use of the iPads for those events. We also have a limited number of iPads. 60 sounds like a lot, but when you've got so many festivals happening in the same time period in the spring and in the fall, it seems like limiting use of the iPads for expos may be a way that we can allow everyone access to them. But if you've got some other data collection, if there's some other data we want to collect where it makes sense to use the iPads, we certainly can discuss that. Karen, do you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing I would add is that the more varied the data collection, the more interesting I think the data will be. And so in addition to everything that Denise just said that I absolutely agree with about learning a lot about that expo context, you do want people to be able to get beyond that. Whether that happens in year one or not until later years of the grant may come down to your own capacity and your own staffing at your own festival.
Mm-hmm.
The iPad minis also make data entry very easy because you can just tap right through the different programs. And so one thing that we're going to need to think about and strategize around is whether we also want paper-based versions of all of the surveys available, so that if you have a lecture event or an event where you can hand out a paper survey and collect data pencil paper, that those are collected and then entered before you send the iPads back to us, so that they all load into the same database and all load into the same system. But I think those are strategies that we're going to want to think about and sort of slog through together when we meet in January. It's a great question for people to be thinking about already, though.
And I think another related question that came in is related to when to collect it, when data can be collected. Does it always have to be in person, or can it be an email follow-up as a way to get data from visitors at events? And that sounds like something we will have to work through together.
Yeah, that is a great question that I don't have a good answer to.
Yeah.
QuickTap, the program that we're using, actually, you know what? QuickTap is now partnering with SurveyMonkey, and so I think the question should be yes. I just have to figure out how to make it go.
How to make it go.
But that's a great question for me to hear now and to be able to figure out between now and when we meet in January. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. What's the turnaround time on getting data back? Because annual reports are typically made shortly at the after the conclusion of the festival, and would the individual festivals get their data back quickly enough to be included in the annual reports?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about QuickTap and SurveyMonkey is that as soon as your data are entered, your basic descriptive analyses are done. If we end up including more complicated analyses as part of the website, then that may be a little bit delayed in year one or year two as the website is still being developed and refined. But one of the reasons that we chose QuickTap and SurveyMonkey is because they do already have some basic reporting functionality. And so I think it should be almost instantaneous. As soon as your events are done or any extra data that you have are entered into the system, you should be able to log on, choose the data for just your festival, and see all of your basic results presented for you.
Great. There are several more questions. I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to hit a couple that I think we can actually answer right now. How do we refer to ourselves within the EvalFest context? Is each festival considered a collaborator, a partner, an evaluation site, or other? Okay, maybe I picked one we can't answer right now.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that in the proposal we referred to the entire community as partners. Yeah. So we have 26 partners that are embarking on this together. And I like that terminology, but I'm definitely open to other ideas.
I like partner as well, and if someone feels really strongly about a different reference, please let us know. But I think partner really encapsulates what we hope everyone feels as part of EvalFest. And then the last question has to do with integration of Science Festival Alliance and EvalFest. I just wanted to let everyone know that that both Catherine, who is really tied to the Bay Area Science Festival, and Karen and I with the North Carolina Science Festival are very intimately involved with the Science Festival Alliance, either because we have been in it from the very beginning, as is the case with Catherine and the Bay Area Science Festival, or have come into the Science Festival Alliance and work very closely with Ben and Julie and really find value in the Science Festival Alliance and the community that's been developed through the Alliance. Ben Weehee is actually on the advisory board for EvalFest. We see EvalFest and the Science Festival Alliance fitting hand in hand together. We recognize that most of the partner festivals, to start using the word partner out loud, are members of the Science Festival Alliance, and we think that brings an immense amount of strength and camaraderie and community to both groups. How that integration looks is under discussion right now. You know, we're really just getting up and running. Science Festival Alliance has been around for a while, but you know, the Science Festival Alliance is rebuilding its website, and so we're looking at, you know, if there are ways that we can mesh the EvalFest tools within the Science Festival Alliance website. We've got a lot to work through there, but know that that's something that we are actively discussing, and you know, is a goal of ours to make everyone involved in the festival world, Science Festival world, to make it as easy as possible for us to find what we need and to access the materials and information that we want and need to access to do our work. So if you've got specific recommendations on how we might work together, we would love to hear those. That is a discussion that is ongoing and has been going on since EvalFest was just a kernel of an idea 4 or 5 years ago. So yes, that is absolutely a goal for Catherine and Karen and myself and Ben and Julie and everyone else involved with both SFA and EvalFest. If we did not get to your question, we will try to do so as quickly as possible. A lot of you just left us comments, and we'll acknowledge those as well. And be in touch with you in the next day or so again with information on traveling to Chapel Hill. And then, you know, just in closing, that one of the things that Catherine and Karen and I hope we do a lot is ask you what you need. Participation in EvalFest should make your life easier and better, not harder or more complicated. So you will hear this question from us a lot. We hope you will take us up on by answering that question or coming to us anytime there's something festival evaluation related that you think would be useful to you or to this community at large. And really appreciate you all hanging with us today for as long as you have, for asking lots of great questions and making great comments. We have recorded this webinar. We'll post it so that if you have a colleague who is not able to attend, he or she will be able to access the webinar. We'll send a link out to that as soon as it's ready. I want to thank everyone for being here today, for agreeing to be part of EvalFest. We can't wait to get this group together in person and really get going. And unless there are any last-minute questions, I think we'll sign off for today, and we'll see you in Chapel Hill in January. All right, we don't see any other questions, so we are going to sign off now. Thank you so much. Take care.